Okay, yes, I have a good recipe for you for fry bread. It's really easy. Don't worry, I'm going to show you how to do it in this video.
I needed some non-copyrighted music, but I couldn't find any, so I had to make my own, and I have no idea what I'm doing.
So for this recipe, you're going to need 2 cups of flour, 2 tablespoons baking powder, a half a teaspoon of salt, 1 cup of warm water, and enough oil to fry, about 1 inch, and this will give you about 8 fry breads. This recipe can easily be halved or doubled. Okay, so today's recipe is a request from my sister, Brittany. This is for you. She wanted me to show for Indian fry bread, and it's so simple. I'm just gonna use, for about every cup of flour, you're gonna get about 4 fry breads. So for my family, we just have 3 young ones, and they don't eat too much. So I'm gonna use 2 cups of flour, which will give me about 8 fry breads. So that's 2 cups of flour. And to each cup of flour that you use, you're gonna want you're gonna use 1 tablespoon of baking powder. So I have 2 cups of flour, so I'm using 2 tablespoons of baking powder. If you have 3 cups of flour, you would use 3 tablespoons. If you have 4 cups of flour, you would use 4 tablespoons. Okay, I'm also going to be adding a little bit of salt. And for this, sometimes the traditional recipes don't have salt in it, but I like salt. So I'm putting half of a teaspoon. And we're just going to mix this up. And for every cup of flour, you're also going to be using about a half a cup of water. So since I'm using 2 cups of flour, I'm going to be using about a cup of water. And you want warm water. Another thing that you want to keep in mind is that you don't want to overwork your dough, so we're just going to add a little bit at a time until it starts becoming a dough ball. This is why people pay cameramen. What the heck? Are you kidding me? So I'll bring you in closer to show you what it looks like. Okay, so this is basically all mixed like that, and it does look a little bit sticky, but I'm not going to add any extra flour right now. I probably added a little bit too much water, but we're going to let this sit here for about 10 minutes. Actually, the longer the better. I'm going to let it sit here for like a half an hour. And dough really changes when you give it a little bit of time to rest. So you don't want to overwork this, so I'm just going to leave this as it is, and then when we come to form the little fry breads, then we'll see if we need to add more flour at that time. Right now I don't want to do it. So what I'm going to do right now is just cover this and set it to the side for about a half an hour. Easy, yeah? So while that dough is resting, I went ahead and tossed some canned beans and refried them up. So here I'm just browning some meat. I don't have anything in here yet. I think this is a 97 or 93.7 lean. And so far I just barely got all the frozen pieces. I had it frozen, so I just barely got all the frozen pieces cooked up, and I'm going to start adding the seasonings here pretty soon. For the taco seasonings, I used 1 tablespoon chili powder, 1 teaspoon of black pepper, 1 tablespoon of oregano, half a teaspoon of cumin powder, half a teaspoon of garlic powder, and 1 teaspoon of salt. So I just have a regular cheap chili powder. I think I found it at a grocery outlet or something. It's not spicy, and it has a pretty good flavor. So I'm adding about 1 tablespoon. 1 teaspoon of black pepper. This is about 1 tablespoon of oregano, but I'm gonna crush it when I put it in there. I'm gonna do half a teaspoon of cumin and about half a teaspoon of garlic powder. Then I'm just gonna give this a quick stir. And also about 1 teaspoon of salt. Okay, it's starting to dry out, so I'm gonna add a little bit of water. And I'll just let all that flavor cook together so that way the meat can absorb all the flavor. I'm going to leave it on low. It's just a basic taco meat with dried spices. Really easy. You can make burritos with this. You could put this on top of nachos. I'm going to put this on top of the fry bread. Okay, I'm going to turn it to low and just leave it there. Okay, so it's been a half an hour and we've already made our beans and our taco meat, so now it's time to start working this dough. And I'm just pulling off enough. I'm gonna keep my fry breads a little bit small just so that it'll fit my pan and that it'll be easier for the kids to eat it. And I'm just gonna roll it like this. This dough is a little bit wetter than I want it than it should be, but that's okay. So I have my flour off to the side here, and so I'm just trying to get it as much off of my hands as possible and just working it really fast so that it all sticks together. And then off to the side of my camera, I'm sorry I couldn't fit it in the frame, but I have my flour, and so I tossed it into the flour, and then I'm going to start flattening it. And you don't need to use a smasher or anything like that. This is just a very imperfect, fast dough. And what I like to do is I like to pinch it like this and pull it like this. It makes it easier for me to get it thinner. And you do kind of want it thinner. It will poof up. So you just kind of stretch it like this. I kind of pinch it around the edges and I pull it until it gets like pretty thin. Almost like a tortilla, but it's not going to stay as thin as a tortilla when we fry it. It's going to be fluffy like a bread. So I'm just pinching and pulling it, and if it has a little hole like that one right there, I'm not too worried about it. It'll be fine. So you can pinch it back if it's like a huge one, but I'm going to put this straight into the oil, and we're going to let it fry for like 20-30 seconds maybe. It'll fry up pretty quick. And you want your oil really hot. That's the trick. I think my oil actually should have been a little bit hotter. But the longer that you leave it in the oil to cook, then the harder the bread is going to be. And we want a nice fried soft bread. So about 30 seconds and then we'll flip it. So here I am just squeezing another piece of dough and rolling it around in my hands and flattening it. And then you can see my dough is very wet, so I'm going to stick it off to the side into the flour and just start pressing it so that it's not sticking to my hands as much. And I'll just continue to pinch it and stretch it. To me, I find that that's the easiest way for the fry bread. And then it's been about 40 seconds for this fry bread, and that took a little bit longer. Than it should be going a little bit faster, but that's okay. It'll still be good. My oil is still continuing to get hot, so hopefully they'll cook up a little bit faster as we go forward. So I'm just continuing to pinch this masa here and getting it thin. And you kind of want it thin because you want it to cook all the way through, but even though, so you can see the thinness right there, even though the bread is going to be fluffy, it will still fluff up even if you pull it thin. But if you have it too thick and then you go to fry it really fast, then it could still be soggy in the middle, and you don't want that. So just try to get it as thin as possible. And I think this one is pretty much done. So I have this plate here with the tea towel, and I'm just gonna flip it off to the side, and you can see that just has a really nice golden color, and these are going to be really, really good. My kids love them too, with sugar and cinnamon, kind of like the elephant ears that you get at like I don't know, the fair and stuff like that. So I'm just gonna cover these until it's time to serve, and put this next one into the oil. And so here again, I'm just pinching off a piece of the dough, sticking it on into the flour, just because my dough could have used more flour at the beginning. And I'm flattening it out and pinching around the sides to get it pretty thin. And that is pretty much ready to go into the oil. So these are going pretty quick now. It's really easy. It doesn't really take too much time at all, and it gives a nice like homemade element that you can stick into your weekly food routine, or just switch it up, something different once a month. It's really, really easy. It takes just a little bit of time. It is a pain to fry, but it's worth it. Now that these are going pretty fast, one thing I like to do is just hold it to the side of the pan and let the oil drain off before I stick it onto my towel, and then I'll go ahead along with the other ones, and that's pretty much it. They fry up really quick. So I'm going to show you how we're plating it up tonight. So here I'm just going to put the beans, refried beans, on here, just like a tostada or taco, just like that. This is taco meat. Hopefully you can see that in the screen here. Put that on there, and you can top this with lettuce or whatever you have. What I happen to have now is cheese and a little bit of leftover salsa that I made yesterday. And that is Indian fry bread.
It's ready.
I hope you see now that it's a super simple recipe. Don't be scared to try it. No, you're not gonna mess it up. I hope that this really helped you. If you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to give a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you like it, and thank you so much for watching.
I needed some non-copyrighted music, but I couldn't find any, so I had to make my own, and I have no idea what I'm doing.